Hello and welcome to the Dead Air Dudes. I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka, and we'd like to thank you again for your listening, liking, subscribing, continuing supporting the Dead Air Dudes. We are on our serial killer trail, continuing on with our true crime series, and today we have a doozy, one of the big bad subjects.
The big bad Mama Jam.
Maybe more accurately, the phenomenon.
Right.
Because it really was a clown event.
Yeah.
And specifically, we're talking about Henry Lee Lucas.
Henry Lee, yes, Henry of the Portrait of a Serial Killer fame, and many other publications, movies, and a lot of famous and not so famous characters were based on this guy. And depending on who you ask and who you believe, the number of victims can be from 11 to 600. Or even if you read other reports, as much as 1,000. Now,
yeah,
he's known as the Confession Killer, the Highway Stalker, among other names.
The Deadly Drifter, the One-Eyed Drifter, and as soon you'll come to understand, a truly disturbed individual.
Yeah.
And I guess the only phrase, we've covered so many of these lunatics. I think the only phrase that really, really makes sense here is from jump, he was fucked up and just continued to be tumbling down the hill of destruction. And everything he touched went sour.
Yeah, pretty much every example of a person becoming a serial killer just about happened to this guy. That's no defending. He's still an enormous piece of shit. But we're just here to, give the story and give our 2 cents as we like to do. Here's a quote, a quick quote from the man himself. I hated all my life. I hated everybody. When I first grew up, and I can remember, I was dressed up as a girl by my mother. And I stayed that way for 2 or 3 years. After that, I was treated like what I call the dog of the family. I was beaten. I was made to do things that no human being would want to do. Okay, now.
And with that, let's start things off. Born in Blacksburg, Virginia, 1936, to a father, Anderson, or No Legs Lucas, because apparently either he fell asleep drunk at a train stop or some hideous accident happened, took his legs off at a railroad, and to a mother, Viola Dixon Lucas, who was a prostitute, an alcoholic, and many other things in between. So between the two parents.
She wasn't just a regular prostitute. She was a special kind of prostitute. She was obviously fucked up,
Oh, she's the royal reason why he went the path that he went.
Yeah.
I'm going to say plain as Jane. I mean, you can say all you want about nature versus nurture. Maybe it was in his genes. Maybe it's in many people's genes. But you need a little catalyst to get you going to that direction. She provided it and then some. And we'll get to that. She was ruling the house. And by the house, we mean a one-room log cabin. Yes, you can't make this up, people. A one-room log cabin in the hills of Virginia, and turning tricks, so she would bring tricks home.
Mm-hmm.
She had a family friend, Uncle, what the hell's his name? Uncle Bernie.
Uncle Bernie.
Uncle Bernie, she would make young Lucas watch.
Yep.
As her and Uncle Bernie got it on, and anybody else she turned tricks on who she brought home, she would make him watch. He was not the only one. There were 9 other half brothers and sisters in the house in a 1-bedroom log cabin, mind you. There's no place to run, no place to hide. You're watching the whole thing. You're confused. You're embarrassed. You have no idea what to feel. You could feel anger. I don't know how these sexcapades carry out. They could be violent. They could be whatever. I don't even want to go further than that. So No Legs dad makes moonshine. He makes shine for a living. Mom's a drunk. He's a drunk. He's so drunk that at some point in a blizzard, he couldn't find his way home. He ended up dying of hypothermia. I mean, drunk and stupid.
We're drunk and stupid.
You had mentioned before, Mom made him dress up like a girl for years to embarrass him. Made fun of him. Made fun of him for accepting a teddy bear at school. Made fun of him for everything. Beat him. At some point, at age 8, Mom beat him with a plank so hard that it placed young Henry in a 3-day coma.
Yeah. He also would cross-dress him so that he can be pimped out to men and women. And eventually his school teachers complained, and they had to get a court order to end that. But before that happened, good old Uncle Bernie and his older half-brother, they introduced Lucas to bestiality and animal torture. So, yeah, it's not a perfect.
No, so they got bestiality introduced. Also, Mom killed a mule that Uncle Bernie brought home for Henry because she wanted to punish him. So he was pimped out. He was cross-dressed. He was embarrassed and beaten. He was introduced to bestiality, and according to other by himself and others, at age 11 he already was an alcoholic.
Yep. And his first sexual experience, meaning when he sexual human experience was with a 17-year-old who he raped and then strangled to death.
Yeah, by all accounts, it's a person whose name we won't mention because we're not accurately sure that's the person. But at age 14, he did this.
Yeah. Well, so let's get this straight. There are so many reports on Lucas that, I mean, I don't want to say that everything is a lie or everything is truth. But
there's a lot of hearsay.
There's a lot of hearsay. He confessed to so much, and then he recanted and retracted a lot of it as well. And then there were reporters who tried to investigate him and, call him out as all bullshit. So we're just bringing it out there and just get you guys.
Well, he would mention later in life as well that his pathological line was taught to him at an early age to get out of trouble. So it's his go-to thing. So he himself is such a pathological. I'm jumping ahead, but he's a pathological liar. But amongst other things, from early youth, and we're talking about post this abduction and rape and killing, him and his half-brothers were all into burglary.
Yep.
To the tune of in 1952, he was imprisoned for burglary, and then again in 1954, imprisoned for a 6-year term for 12 counts of burglary.
For 12, exactly.
So you talk about tons and tons of burglaries. Now, he already has claimed to have killed and raped before this. He's also definitely indicted and convicted for burglary. We're taking us now to 1959,
Well, it's not,
This is where
hold on. The fact that within being sentenced to 4 years, escaped, was found
he
3 days
escaped twice.
and brought back to finish up the, you know.
So here again, I know we indict a lot of the criminal system, and we're going to do it again. The criminal justice system, if you want to so call it that, in Virginia. So all these counts of burglary, 2 failed attempts of escaping prison, and then he gets released.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Now here's where now things start taking a more serious, if it weren't serious before. He's kicking up his game. You know, this is now in 1959, released. He travels to Tecumseh, Michigan.
Nice pronunciation.
Yeah, practiced that about 3 times. To be with his sister. I don't know which sister, but to be with his sister.
Half sister Opal. Yes.
Opal, there you go.
Yes, like the stone.
Yes. Very, very colorful characters here. While with his sister, and again, he spends a lifetime bouncing around with family, if you want to call it that. While there, his mom's still alive, God bless her soul, crazy nut that she is. Viola gets wind of this, travels to Michigan, and tells him, no, I don't approve of this. I don't approve of your life choice. I don't approve of you. You need to come back home to Virginia and take care of me. Me?
At this point, he was engaged to be married to a pen pal that he corresponded while he was in prison.
Which again, sidebar commentary. Don't you find it fascinating, Izzy, that many of these so-called sociopaths we investigate run into pen pals? Not just pen pals, admirers, fans, obsessed lunatic fans who not only adore them and idolize them, they want to marry them.
Yeah, it is the head scratcher of the century. It is insane to me, but hey, this is par for the course. I mean, why not?
I'm pushing all my chips to the middle of the table that at some point these pen pals say these individuals are misunderstood.
Yeah. All right. So, wow. Then Mama shows up, right? And
they get into a fight. They get into a big argument. And I'm sure there's drinking involved. There's throwing of fists. I'm sure there's physical abuse involved.
Yeah, she beat him in the head with a broom. And at this point, he returned the favor and stabbed her in the neck. And, he fled the scene.
And
we have a quote. You want to hear the quote?
Let's hear the quote.
All I remember was sleeping alongside. Well, I'm sorry. All I remember was slapping her alongside the neck. But after I did that, I saw her fall and decided to grab her. But she fell to the floor, and when I went back to pick her up, I realized she was dead. Then I noticed that I had my knife in my hand, and she had been cut.
Clearly an accidental killing of a knife wound entering the neck.
Yeah. So.
Let's not forget how we glazed over this, and my apologies, that in his youth, one of his brothers had fought with him and cut him in the eye. The eye got infected so bad that in several days, it could not be ignored anymore. They had to take it to the hospital and remove his eye. He since has a glass eye in one of his eyes. So he has a little disfigurement about him. But Mama, whose care he's under, just let it go until he lost his freaking eye. This is the same person that he and abuses him, pimps him out, does all this stuff, now demands that she that he go back with her to Virginia just so he can take care of her. You can't get more fucked up than this situation, this whatever. Not justifying the killing, but again, here comes Henry at some convoluted story to try to get out of this and justify the death. It didn't work out. He's convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced 20 to 40 years for murdering his mom.
The official report said that she had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Precipitated by the fall.
I would too if somebody stabbed me in the neck. But again, maybe in a drunken stupor, I'm beating them with a broomstick. I mean, you can go either way here.
The justice system once again. So he's supposed to get 20 to 40 years, correct?
Correct. And what happens in June of 1970?
He's released and only serves 10 due to the overcrowding of jail and of prison. And he's released for being such a good
But in the same year, he's arrested again and sentenced to 3.5 years for the kidnapping of 3 young girls. 3 younger. I mean, you just got released. You just stabbed mama. You're just out free. And then you're trying to corral 3 young girls? You sick puppy. And for your justice system, I don't know how long you need to take to learn. And I understand in the 70s, and we have revisited this many times in many episodes, in the 70s, there was a huge movement for rehabilitation, for therapy, counseling, yada, 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 yada. You know what? In most circles, these things do work. For these depraved individuals, it's a joke. They manipulate the system. They laugh. They can't believe how easy it is to say, oh, yeah, my mommy made me do it. I have mommy issues. I can be a better person. I want to go back in society. I want to be a contributing member of this and that and be a good citizen.
Yeah, it's nuts. So he's released, but before he's released, he was corresponding with a family friend.
Another family friend.
And when he gets out of jail, they get married. And she has 2 daughters, which he then was accused of molesting the 2 daughters.
Betty Crawford. Story goes down really bad. Story is she confronts him about his behavior with the 2 girls. He gets irate. I don't think he's working at the job at the time. He's probably drunk. And they have a fight. He supposedly keeps her holed up for like 3 days, ties her up, beats her up, does all this stuff until finally family members come and I think with shotgun in hand, demand to know what's he doing, what's going on. And of course he lies again. And he says that she attacked him, flips the whole story up and down. Again, the pathological lying, but his control, his anger, his violence. I'm actually shocked that she survives alive through this whole ordeal. After said time, he goes away. And he becomes a full-fledged drifter in the southern parts of America. This is the time that he later confesses that he did a ton of heavy drifting, murdering, raping, leaving bodies and victims on the right side of the road, here, there, wherever. This is one of the moments that he claims that he was distraught, he was angry, he was alone, and he lashed out.
Here is also where he finally meets his buddy, Otis Toole. Okay.
So
now, here is where we're gonna project a little bit and talk about the movie Otis and the real Otis.
I just find it interesting in many of the serial killers that we have covered already. we haven't really hit it to a tandem. Now, we've had some serial killers, and we had the serial shooters in Arizona that we covered, New Mexico. They buddied up. This is in the 70s, and this is an odd pairing. But when you find out more about the pairing,
don't forget, we did Charles.
We did Charles too. When you find out about this pairing, my suspicion is they have to have killed a lot of people.
Well, yeah.
I mean, from the claims that they've had versus actual hardcore evidence and findings. No, this makes the others seem junior, and this is varsity.
Yeah. Now, to quickly get into Otis. Otis was born in Jacksonville, Florida, March 5th, 1947. And unlike the movie Otis, where he seems more of a capable, I guess, understudy to Henry, Otis in real life was a full-fledged alcoholic, first of all, which they kind of allude to in the movie. And he was pretty an out-and-out homosexual, which doesn't matter. But in comparison to the movie, where they kind of allude to it here and there, but they don't full-fledged go all out. And it seems that freaking Otis also was a bit, not that smart in real life.
Otis Toole, the individual in real life, was a large man.
Yeah.
He was like 6'6" or something. He was a huge man. He was also very strong.
He was like when he's like a man child, his IQ was 75. So
right, and they met at a soup kitchen. God knows how that happened. And by all accounts, he was very flamboyant and almost daring people to make a comment or say something about his gender choice, about his sexuality, about his behavior, about his persona. And he had no problem being the shot. I mean, he could to almost anybody.
Look how big he was, of course. It just makes sense. I mean, it's all right.
So correct in the sense that, from all accounts, he was more of a brutish guy. Where here comes along Henry Lee Lucas, who, don't worry, guys, we are not getting this all twisted. We are not saying he's the second coming of Einstein, but he can talk his way. Apparently, Henry Lee Lucas, with all his pathological lying, and to be a pathological liar, you kind of have to have a little sense of the gift of gab. Yes. You kind of have some degree of remembering your lies, what's believable, how to read people's faces, and kind of put stories together on the fly. So there's a little craftiness involved. You pair these two together, and then you have Henry Lee Lucas kind of expelling his philosophies, which for the most part are: people are cattle, do what you want, take what you want, kill who you want, and now you have muscle to back you up.
Exactly. Something that was missing in the movie. This guy was pretty, like, as effed up as the movie Otis is. Real Otis was an arsonist. Was also he was a cannibal who also, with his size, would prop people up and crucify them at the behest of his cult called the Hands of Death. Okay.
And that was the preferred way to kill people. I mean, you torture them, you rape them, then you crucify them, and then you barbecue them.
Yes.
And you go to town.
I'm into that, but which Lucas said he did not partake in the eating of the people because he did not like the barbecue sauce. He didn't really care for it.
I can see that. He's not really into that. Although Henry Lee Lucas, by his own admission, I guess evidence, maybe, he's a necrophiliac.
Yep.
And
And
he prefers
relationship as well.
Yeah. Now, rumors abound about their interpersonal relationship, but what was not argued, and it's in the movie but not accurate.
No.
Otis Toole has a niece, Frida, air quotes, Becky Powell, referred to as Becky. I believe 10 or 12 years old at the time when they met. And Otis Toole, I guess, was the, I don't know, for lack of a better word, father figure, guardian, whatever, of Becky. When they met, Henry took a liking to young Becky.
Yes, a 10-year.
So this is, if you can't get any more sicker, I mean, not fond of,
No.
like,
I mean,
10-year-old Becky.
When you watch the movie and you see Becky, who's in the movie, is Otis,
full-fledged woman.
She's a full-fledged woman.
A mother.
Relationship that they have. This was the supposed attraction that Henry had with Becky in real life. Okay. To the point where they run away together. And it's just so it's worse than fiction. It is crazier than fiction. So you have Lucas, who has a romantic relationship with Toole, and he's striking up a relationship with his niece.
10-year-old niece. Now, from the years of 79 to 81, Lucas and Toole worked together in a roofing company and some other odd jobs. And this is where they have claimed to have committed hundreds of murders. Sex, rape, torture, murder, barbecue, crucifixion, cannibalism, all of the above. To the tune that 108 of which were committed together, sometimes by the orders of the satanic cult, sometimes on their own, sometimes completely random. I mean, you talk about 108. I don't know who comes up with that number. And hundreds more individually. That's a 3-year span.
Yeah.
It's about hundreds. And of course, there's many missing persons reports. There's many, forensics is not like forensics today. Charred bodies beyond recognition.
And here is where the relationship or the friendship, whatever you want to call it, of Lucas and Toole end, because he finally becomes sexually, which we neglected to mention this, warning, graphic talk and advisement, warning, all that good stuff. And obviously, if you listen to it so far, stay, keep listening, obviously. But yeah, so he runs away, like I mentioned before, with Becky. This drives Otis crazy, and supposedly because of this, he killed another 9 people in 6 different states. All right. Then Toole gets arrested for for murdering George Sonnenberg, and it gets further. He pleads to 4 more murders in Jacksonville, and he receives 4 more life sentences, which in turn leads eventually to his death at age 49 of, I do believe, cirrhosis.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's that.
I'm curious because Florida has a death penalty. I don't know why. he didn't get that. But I know there's a whole bunch of legal things involved, whatnot.
Yeah, I mean we can get deeper into into two, but the real story is here about Lucas.
So Lucas now is he's in Texas, and is with Becky, and he's working for an elderly person named Kate Rich. Kate Rich is single, elderly, on her own. I think she hires him to be like a help around the house, handyman du jour. And then complains, I guess, to family, friends, and members that she pays him and he does a half-assed job or doesn't do the job at all. Then they find out that he's writing checks under her name and scamming her and taking money from her. And so she's not happy with him. I think she must also get wind of what kind of weird inappropriate relationship he has with Becky, and is not cool with that too. I think he calls her out. She calls him out, and it gets really, really heated. How does this go from here? Kate Rich.
well, while they're hitchhiking, Lucas and Powell picked up. This is where they run into the House of Prayer, a religious temple
Yes.
located in Stoneburg, Texas. Okay. Now, at this point, they believe that Lucas and Powell, Becky, were a married couple. And
right, they hire him to live as a roofer.
Exactly. Now, this leads all the way up to 83, June of 83, where, of all things, Lucas is arrested again, but this time unlawful possession of a firearm by a Texas Ranger. At this point, he confessed to the murders of none other than Becky and Rich, the 82-year-old Rich. Okay. And then supposedly led the police to, their bodies, all the remains.
Right, that incinerated in the stove in the House of Prayer. So they went to the House of Prayer stove and they found human body, bones and stuff. And then they went to the chicken coop.
Here is where other times where he's either full of shit or whatever. The forensics could not prove whether or not it was them. And then he later recanted, said, you know what, no, I didn't do that. He denied involvement. But it goes back to what Rocco was saying before, that he's a pathological liar. Both ways, whether it's true or whether it's fake. But authorities do believe that, yes, he indeed killed, both Powell and Rich.
Yeah, he had the bones burned and then scattered, and then they found the bones. So, I mean, only he would know where these bones are. And he did confess to them, and they were there. So the Texas Rangers got him. He pled guilty to 2 murders in court. Then he shocked everyone by claiming that he had committed over 100 additional murders. Here is where Hollywood steps in and makes a terrible story turn so tragic for hundreds of victims. In that sense, what I'm talking about is you now have this media storm. And again, this is early 80s, mid 80s. You have a media storm, and not just so much a media storm, but it is fueling a task force, specifically the Lucas Task Force, which is multi-state. And you have all these mini task force in different states now hearing that this guy confessed to hundreds of murders. So you have people in other states who some have good intentions, some are trying to make a name for themselves. And so collectively, they bombard Lucas and the little tiny jail cell he's in Texas to make an appointment with him to gather ideas about, to interrogate him and to brainstorm him and to
shit out of a movie.
Yes. So he becomes somebody important. He becomes
collector. He becomes.
Yeah, becomes big shot. And here he is now getting all the cigarettes he wants. He says cartons, not just one or two, cartons of cigarettes, boxes of cigarettes when he wants it. Food, all the food, drink. I mean, he's in a cell, but he's living larger than he ever lived before. He's got spotlight. He's loved. He's got attention. So, like idiots, a lot of these task force drop their case files in advance, which is not unheard of. But what's unheard of and stupid to the nth degree is that he's allowed to finger through them. So to the point that when the investigators finally arrived coming from LA, coming from the deep South, coming from Virginia, where have you, they interview him, and not only just interview him, they do a terrible job. They do classic leading.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you dumped that body by the 76 gas station? Oh, the Sunoco gas station? Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah, that gas station was right there. He was able to see evidence, see pictures, descriptions, and he was able to use his pathological lying skill to claim ownership of that death.
And he claimed that to the tune of 213 unsolved murders.
And plus, he actually broke it down to a mathematical formula of how many murders he did per month with the number of years he was drifting. This is utter bullshit. You could get the most serial killer in the world. There might be some that do use a mathematical pattern, but the way he's described it, I mean, you're really just fooling yourselves. He's giving what you want because he's getting what he wants. He gets attention, food, drink, notoriety, you name it. It's a load of crap. So the real injustice here is that the victims of these real families are falsely told that the crime or death of their missing person is solved because he killed them, when in fact there was no substantial evidence, no hardcore evidence, nothing.
He claimed murders in Japan and in Spain, okay, even though he never left the freaking country. And he claimed that, you know what, I killed Jimmy Hoffa.
Yes.
So, all right.
So you get to a point that he's just so full of shit, but so many people are feeding into it that they think they found the treasure trove, the mother of all serial killers, when in fact he is definitely a killer. He definitely probably engaged in ritualistic killing and serial killing. And he's a bad apple, beyond bad apples. But to be the claim of thousands of unsolved cold cases and murders is just not utterly accurate, proven, substantiated, nothing. But during the time, he was the biggest media swell.
Well, I mean, don't forget, at that time, was that 83, 84? At that time, you have, in 86, Henry was made, or the serial killer.
Right. So now to go back and forth, ladies and gents. So let's go to Henry. So Henry.
Just one last thing.
Okay.
A lot of this was debunked by the Dallas Times Herald, in specific journalist Hugh Ainsworth and others. So, and they went and did the numbers. Okay. They calculated that Henry Lee Lucas would have had to have used the Ford station wagon that he had, which was 13 years old at the time, to cover 11,000 miles or 17,700 kilometers in 1 month to have committed the crimes the police attributed to him. Okay? Now, after the story appeared in 85, the Lucas Task Force was pretty much, womp womp. All right?
A big, huge flop.
A big, huge flop. The book of the task force was, the whole thing, the detailed timeline of all Lucas's murders. But,
So in the end, I believe he did received the death penalty in Texas, and for the conviction of, was it 11 murders?
Yeah, convicted of 11 murders, sentenced to death for one.
And again, in keeping with the theme of the theatricals, not exactly the 11th hour, but in the last opportunity, then Governor George W. Bush, who didn't commute anybody's sentence, commuted Henry Lee Lucas's sentence from the death penalty to life in prison. Which almost becomes a moot point because he dies basically in natural causes and 3 years later in his prison cell.
Yeah, at the age of 60. Now, go back to what you were saying.
So, I mean, again, yeah, to wrap up this case, he screwed up individual, touched many lives in the wrong way, and eventually sentenced to death. He very well could have killed many, but not nearly as many as he confessed to. Now, being the media maelstrom that he was at the time, there was a film was being funded, to make a horror movie with a lot of blood and gore. And the chosen writer was John McNaughton.
Which turned into the movie that we were mentioning before, which is Henry the Serial Killer.
So what happened is they kind of lost funding and backing midway through. But they did have $110,000 to play with. Now, this is the 80s. It's a hell of a lot more money than it is today, but it's peanuts to make a full-length film. So instead of making the bloody horror movie that he was supposed to make, he said, all right, I'm going to use my 16 millimeter. I'm going to get family and friends to help act in it. And we're going to film this movie largely based on the news at the time, Henry Lee Lucas and Otis. And that's where the movie concept came from. They filmed this in 28 days.
Yeah.
Largely using family and friends, costumes, setting, some of the people on set, this was their car in the movie Henry. That was their car. Michael Rooker, I don't know how they landed him, and he had a spectacular role. Played Henry. Sidebar, little nugget. Michael Rooker was a young coming up actor. He was so into the character.
Method acting.
He never got out of character.
Nope.
To the point that the makeup artist actually said during makeup and off makeup, he would speak and talk just like he was Henry. Very flat, very one-dimensional, very subtle, understated demeanor, almost to the point that she was a little terrified at times.
Yeah, he had his own dressing room. And yeah, he
would not interact with crew.
When he would speak about his childhood and background, but he would talk as Henry. He would act as Henry, not as Michael Rooker.
And not to say anything else about the subject matter, but just as Michael Rooker, it was a phenomenal performance. For this B, which it was, a B movie, low-funded, low-exposure movie, he put in his 1,000% all, and sorry, pun intended, it's a killer performance.
Yeah, I mean, on another nugget, he was a janitor at the time, and this was one of his first films. And from this movie, though, the tape going around the circle, going around Hollywood, he actually got 7 to 8 roles, including the 8 Men Out at this point, from this one role. The movie was rated X originally.
And that was another point of conflict and contention. It's been argued by many in the movie world that why can't you have an adult-only rating that doesn't necessarily tag the movie as an adult pornography film? So it's either your R or your X. And so this movie, because of the subject matter, and I mean, it is grisly, gory. Not the greatest special effects, I will admit that, but it is gruesome subject matter. Killing, murder, sex, torture, all that, rape. But because of the directive of the time, the MPAA will only designate it as an X rating. So you think of Henry, it's an X movie. No one's going to take this seriously when it's an X-rated movie.
Not only that, the studio didn't know what to do with the movie, as they were expecting a straight up slasher film when they got given this.
It's a serious artistic piece.
Almost a horror piece where there's minimal blood, because in comparison to what it could have been, there was, you see, for all you who haven't seen it, you need to watch it. And if you have seen it, you can agree that there is maybe a couple actual death scenes, and the rest is everything. It's after the fact, or they show the body laying.
But I will give it credit. There is a scene where Otis and Henry are rewatching their assault.
That was one of probably the most uncomfortable and most effed up parts of the movie.
Extremely visceral. They basically abduct the family in their house, torture them, tie them up, rape them, kill them, and they have it on film, and they're rewatching it. But as a B movie goes, this is multi-layered. This is damn good stuff.
Yeah.
I have to say, again, please don't get me all wrong. I am not applauding the subject matter. The artistic delivery, it's not a one-dimensional point of view kind of very linear movie. It's got many viewpoints here, and it makes you, the end goal here was to get you behind the eyes of a cold-blooded sociopath serial killer.
And it did that, and then some.
Yes, it's disturbing, but it's effective in what it meant to be. It's not a kiddie film. It's not a Jason meets Freddy. It's not a horror movie. No, this is straight up serious content of something a lot of us may not want to see, but it has happened. It's real.
Obviously, it's somewhat fictionalized and not exactly what transpired.
But it doesn't spectacularize it something in the lines of Natural Born Killers.
No. See, Natural Born is, no.
It's way overboard.
Yes.
And it's meant to be that way. And I give Oliver Stone credit. It's meant to be that way to get you out of, to more enjoy the film if you can do that, as opposed to be horrified by the subject matter. It's almost like a mockumentary. Henry. You know, but not funny. Haha. More of, wow, chilling, disturbing. And this is why we need people like that behind bars and in therapy or dead. But yes, to get back to the movie, there are major differences between characters. And I get it. It's not a straight up, it's based on the sociopathic killing and life and times of Henry Lee Lucas and Otis, but not a direct biopic.
Oh, definitely. I mean, look, you also had obviously the way Otis ends in the film, and how he ends in the real life story is completely different. But it's still
Becky's age is different, but it ends similar, except he kills Otis, which he does not kill in the movies, and he, spoiler alert, he kills Becky. But you have to appreciate the fact that the director, the writer, the story, they maintain Henry's character throughout. There's glimpses of breaking into that emotional shell that he's living under, and maybe why he is how he is and how he ticks. But true to the portrait of a serial killer. Anyone who gets close, no matter how close. I mean, she confesses her love for him, which is crazy nuts. He kills her. It's this bloody suitcase he leaves on the side of the car with, again, no emotional affect. Looks around, gets back in the car, drives off.
But obviously, she was traumatized by her own childhood and being and male. And
she was a mess. She was a hot mess.
So, what did you expect was going to happen when you devote your, you commit your love to a person who you know for a fact is a murderer, a serial killer? It is, for me, it's a 4-star movie. I'm not sure if it's one that you can watch all the time because of the dark subject matter and how, disturbing it is. But it's definitely a movie that everyone should watch, especially if you're a horror fan. And even if you're not, it's a movie that needs to be watched.
This is a movie that also actually does expand outside the realm of horror. I think criminal justice people, I think people who are listening to this podcast who love true crime, this is the movie for you. It's more of a drama than a horror. It's more of a crime movie than a horror. It's more of a psychological thriller than anything Hannibal can think of. So for our large true crime audience out there, you have to watch this movie. And again, don't sit there with a box, a thing of popcorn thinking, oh, great, this is my Friday night movie, I'm going to enjoy it. No, this is some disturbing shit. But if it lends you some insight into the world of real life fucked up people out there, if you want to warn your young teenage kids about there are people out there like this for real, steer clear of them, watch this movie.
It gives you an insight in a way to Lucas in real life, because even if it's a movie, you know that these were things. And in the beginning, the first 4 murders that they showed were actually based on real life murder that he committed.
Yes, prostitutes, people on the fringe.
When you first show the first couple scenes where you see all the dead people and people screaming in the background, and like how I guess
the woman with the bottle in her head, and
and so. But yeah, quick rating, Rocco, for the movie.
Oh, 4 bloody hatchets, 4 bloody suitcases for sure.
You mentioned that, 4 for me. So, but now reverting back and putting it all in a nice little bow. How many victims do you think he actually really had?
I think he can easily had 25 to 50. In conjunction with Otis, that number gets a little more realistic because you have a tandem who not only are a tandem, but they're linked with a satanic cult.
Yeah.
He has killed before, and then he killed multiple times. Just by the way that the ending happens with Kate Rich and with Becky. So he doesn't discriminate between killing a young person who's actually affectionate towards him, an elderly person, his own mother, prostitutes, and others, anyone who gets in his way. When you have a track record like this, how can you say, oh, maybe 1 more, maybe 5 more? Sky's the limit, and the way he has been as also a pathological liar. Plenty out there, and unfortunately because of that, we'll never really know. And he's dead.
No, we'll never,
But you can't get away from the phenomenon that was the circus that was Henry Lee Lucas. For a part of the 80s, specifically mid-80s, he had captivated the nation and was the hottest thing going around. And it did glorify serial killers in a sense.
Yeah, there's lastly, there's several people who interviewed him, and they attribute him to really having somewhere in the amount of 40 to 50 people, as opposed to he had initially admitted to killing 60 people. Then he raised to 100. Then he raised to 3,000. Which that is.
It can easily be discredited.
I think it's probably somewhere from 500, anywhere between like 40 to 100, somewhere like that.
Which is why, like most of these guys, Ted Bundy, the Ridgeway, the Green River Killer, the Butcher Baker, all these guys that we covered in our past episodes. I hate to say it, but it's almost academic. You wish you can solve everything. There's no way in hell you can. But you kill one, you kill two. Yeah, in my book, you kill more than three in a span of a certain amount of time, and they're all unrelated except for maybe a pattern. You're a serial killer. It makes no academic difference. You kill 300 or 30. As one of these killers have said, after you do your first one, it's like nothing.
Yeah.
And it's almost addictive. And just like an addictive personality, anything else, chocolate, beer, food, cigarettes, you can't just have one to be satiated. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this sort of double feature today, where we featured serial killer Henry Lee Lucas, his partner in crime, Otis Toole, and the inspiration they were for the movie Henry, A Portrait of a Serial Killer, which is, in many respects, a cult classic.
Yeah. Now, we've done this once before with Monster and Eileen Wuornos. Let us know if you guys continue to enjoy these double features where we talk about the actual, real crime and discuss the movie that, followed it. If you guys like that stuff, we'll keep it going. If not, we'll just keep bringing you the heavy hitters now. So we're getting into that level. So stay tuned for the next episode of the Daily News Podcast with the True Crime series.
And again, we'd like to thank you for listening, subscribing, liking, and sharing with your friends. We've gotten some good feedbacks with our latest installments of the scary horror stories. So if you have trouble sleeping at night, tune in to one of our many bedtime stories. As we also bring you the latest in Hollywood news and all things comic books, anime, pop culture, whatever's shaking out there. Thank you for all your support. Remember to save the whales. I'm Raka.
Comment, subscribe, message us, email us, let us know what you like and what you don't. I'm Izzy.
Take care and sleep well, guys. Save the whales.
Take care.